This is Tony with Earthfiles Earth History, and recently we were told that an aircraft entered the restricted airspace around the White House. Now they're telling us that it possibly was a flock of birds. So with the advanced technology today, that they cannot tell the difference between a flock of birds and an aircraft, this is disinformation. This is BS. As you noticed, this story has become quiet. It's my personal belief that when NORAD scrambled the fighter jets to intercept this aircraft, they were actually chasing off a UFO in a close proximity to the White House so the public would not see it. And especially listen to CNN. They threw everything they had at it to create confusion and disinformation. So after you watched these 3 news reports, you can come up with your own theory. And please make a comment and tell me what you think.
Over an unauthorized aircraft in restricted airspace triggered some very tense moments here in Washington earlier today, with the White House going on full lockdown. Our aviation correspondent Renee Marsh is here with details. Renee, I understand now officials believe it could have been a flock of birds?
Yeah, you know, it's funny, the Capitol Hill police saying that it was a slow-moving blob of something. In other words, even at this hour, there's still a lot of uncertainty around what sparked this. As you said, lockdown of the White House. The Capitol earlier this morning, it went into restrictive access. Military jets were scrambled. So there was this frenzy because they believe there was some sort of aircraft in restricted airspace. You can see the Secret Service presence there, as well as Capitol Hill police. They were looking for what was in this restricted airspace. For people who don't know, the airspace in Washington, D.C. is some of the most restricted airspace in the entire country. Well, hours after this all unfolded, they found nothing. They found no aircraft. Capitol Hill police saying they saw something on their radar. They are not quite sure what it was. An official at the White House thought perhaps it might have been a drone, but the military saying, look, when we went up, we saw nothing in the sky. So there is this mystery this evening. They believe, Wolf, that this was indeed a flock of birds, and people at home may be wondering, how is that possible? Quickly, we want to show you an old radar. You see those arrows there? That is essentially what a flock of birds kind of looks like on a radar, so that's how the mistake can be.
On the situation in Washington after the White House and Capitol Hill went into full lockdown, people are returning to the buildings and returning to their desks now. The all clear has been given after an airspace violation that led to those lockdowns. So the all clear has been given and business is returning.
It started at 8:30 this morning. It was over within an hour, but authorities say they're not taking any chances. The North American Aerospace Defense Command, which is also known as NORAD, identified an object on radar. It appeared to be an aircraft in restricted airspace east of the U.S. Capitol. Fighter jets were scrambled. A Coast Guard helicopter was sent to check it out as well, and the Secret Service ordered a lockdown at the White House. U.S. Capitol Police ordered their own evacuations at the Capitol. The all clear sounded within 45 minutes. The airspace in and around D.C. is more restricted than any other part of the country. If you've been in D.C. a while, you may recall the panicked evacuation of the Capitol the day of the funeral of former President Ronald Reagan back in 2004. Police told people, myself included, to run. It was quite a scare. It turned out to be caused by the plane of the Kentucky governor who was on his way to town for the funeral. More recently, in 2015, a mail carrier from Florida violated the restricted airspace in a one-person gyrocopter. He landed it on the Capitol lawn and later pleaded guilty to a federal felony, serving 4 months in prison. After his release, he told the News 4i team he wanted to deliver letters to members of Congress protesting the corrupting influence of big money in politics. As for today's incident, NORAD officials say the radar blip turned out to be a false alarm, but they are looking for the cause. They tell us, in general, those blips can be caused by things like a flock of birds or even a weather balloon, Doreen.